Hello. Yesterday we discussed about ways that we can do for literature review, and based on yesterday's lesson, we talked about the structure of the literature review, and we said we have conceptual review, theoretical review. But before that, when you look at the structure of the literature review, we have the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. And we said the introduction conceptualize the topic, state the purpose of the review, and outline the structure. So we are going to look at a practical way of doing that. Then also the body also summarize and analyze relevant literature, and it helps us to identify gaps and inconsistencies and synthesize key findings. When we talk about synthesize means to summarize or put together key findings. Then we come to the conclusion. That conclusion summarizes the main findings and implications for future research. But we are saying that even though the structure is introduction, body, and conclusion, the body also is made up of what? 3 parts. So the body is made up of conceptual review, theoretical review, and empirical review. That is the body of any literature review. So on yesterday also we also learned about how to conduct a literature review. We said we have to clearly define your research questions. Then you identify the various keywords in your research questions that you think you want to search. Then you search these keywords, or you type your research questions through the databases, and you are going to learn all the databases. Then after getting a lot of articles about your study, you evaluate each of the article based on what inclusion and exclusion, which one will be included and which one will be excluded. Then you read and analyze the articles. So all the articles, you begin to read each of the article, then you begin to summarize whatever that the article is saying. Then from there you write your review. So these are the procedure in order to conduct a literature review. Now when you are evaluating every literature, we evaluate it based on these criteria. We evaluate the research, the literature review based on clarity. We also evaluate it based on adequacy, then the quality of the source, then the strength of the analysis, then implication for future research. For this one, yesterday we discussed about that one. Now let's move to the conceptual review. We are going to do a practical approach of how to write the conceptual review. So that is it. Now let's move to the various repositories and databases that you can use to search for relevant literature. And we have the PubMed for medicine literature. We also have the Google Scholar. We have the Scopus. We have the Web of Science, academia.edu. We have the JSTOR. Then Science Direct. Then we also have the Cochrane Library. We have the Argvis. Then also ResearchGate. These are some of the repositories and databases that you can use to search for relevant literature. So that is it. Then from there, let's look at the various artificial intelligence that we can use for literature review. We can use Perplexity AI. Perplexity AI is used to search for the sites that are related to your topic. We are going to do a practical thing here for us to see. We can also use the Bing Chart by Microsoft. Those who are using Microsoft Edge, we have the Bing Chart there. We also have the Iris AI. The Iris AI is also used. We have the Semantic Scholar. Semantic Scholar also use artificial intelligence to help researchers to come out with a good literature review. Then we also have Elicit. So in our study, we will use elicit throughout our lesson. So these are the various artificial intelligence tools that we can use for literature review. I said Perplexity AI, Bing Chat, Iris, can use Semantic Scholar, and Elicit. Then two software and sites used for comparing and contrasting reviews. We have Excel. We can use Excel to compare means. Let's say, for example, if author 1 said this, if author 2 also said this, you want to compare to know the differences and the similarities. You can use Excel to do that, and I've designed some, so I will share to you. You can also use NVivo. NVivo is also a qualitative software for doing that. We also have the QDA Minolet, and all these things are qualitative software. We also have a site called devchecker.com. So the devchecker.com, you just paste the article of the author 1, then you paste the article of author 2, then you begin to compare in terms of the differences, the methodology they use, in terms of the population that they used. You can compare all of them. We also have Microsoft Word in. For the Microsoft also have add-in, and some of the add-in that it can help you is the Diff Engine X, the DocuProf. We have the Compare Suite. So we can use the Microsoft add-in to do a good comparing and contrasting. Then we also have a site called Word Cloud, and this Word Cloud, we have a monkeylearn.com. It's a word cloud. The word cloud will help you to know which of the areas that the researchers are interested in. So we will do a practical studies here. We also have, you can use the various comments, that is comment section that is both in the Microsoft Word. So these are the two software and sites that you can use for comparing and contrasting reviews by authors. So that is the end of our slides. So now let's move straight to the chapter 2. How the chapter 2 is being done. So when you look at the chapter 2, this is how the chapter 2 is. So when you are writing every master thesis or PhD thesis, or writing a dissertation or a project work, this is how the chapter 2 is. The top there is chapter 2, then literature review. Then from there, we said every literature review has 3 parts: the introduction, the body, and the conclusion. And we also said the body also have 3 parts. We have the conceptual review, empirical review, and theoretical review. So when it comes to the introduction is that you introduce the aspect of the review and why you want to review relevant literature. So I've given an example that you can start it is pertinent to review scholarly work to situate the study to better understand and relate my findings with what has already been known. So the review is in 3 parts: conceptual, theoretical, and empirical. Under the conceptual, relevant topics such as, so you list the topics that you think you cover under the conceptual review. Also with the theoretical review, you also list the topics that you cover. If then you have the empirical review, also the empirical review, you also list the topics that you cover. So with the introduction, you just state the purpose of your study. You just give how the structure of the whole of your literature review. So that is what we do at the introduction session. Then from the introduction session, then we move to the body. So I said the body is also made up of 3 aspects. We have the conceptual, the theoretical, and the empirical. So when we talk about the conceptual, it means that you wanted to treat, you are treating, or you are conducting a study, and that study, you have to know the concept behind whatever that you're doing. Then you try to explain the concept. So whoever takes your study will begin to understand the concept of what you are doing. And we will do a practical thing here. Then also with the theory taker, basing your study on theories and explaining how the theory help you to understand the answers that you want to find. Also, most of the studies, some use theory. They use theory. So that is it. So if you include a theory in your research, then you have to also state how the theory is used. You explain the theory, the various assumptions of the theory. Then we come to empirical evidence. The empirical evidence focus on your research questions. So the empirical evidence is about your research questions. So if you have 3 research questions or 4 research questions, then it means that you are going to review others' articles, the findings of various scholars, what they find out based on your research question. So that is the empirical review. So the empirical review is based on your research question. So was it yesterday someone was saying about the difference between the empirical review and the theoretical review? The theoretical review is the theory, maybe you have included a theory in your study. So with the theoretical review, you are reviewing the theory, the aspect of the theory, the founder of the theory, the assumptions of the theory, the belief of the theory, so that you begin to explain how the theory help you in understanding certain things. You do all these things. Then empirical evidence means that we want to see evidence to show that, so that what others have done in your research, we want a documentary evidence, what people have done in that area. So if you are talking about usage of TLM, you have to talk about researchers, what researchers have seen in usage of TLM, so that people will begin to understand you. So you give evidence. This one is about documentary evidence, what people have found out. So this is why you use the abstract. So with empirical evidence, you use the various abstracts in explaining all these things. So now let's move to the practical aspect, and let me do this thing in such a way that you begin to see it well. So with this one, we have the conceptual review. So with the conceptual review, the first thing is that you come out with your topic. Let's say, for example, my topic is analysis of the impact of TLM on students' interest in social studies. So you can see that. So if this one is my research topic, then you break your research topics into entities. So have you seen? So based on your research topic, what are some of the variables or the things that you think are very important in your research topic? So you can see that analysis of the impact of TLM. So TLM is very important. Student interest is also very important, and social studies is also very important. So you have to break the topics down. So these are entities. So the first entity is TLM, that is entity 1. Then student interest is also entity 2. Then social studies is also entity 3. Then if TLM is an entity 1, then what are some of the sub-entities? So under the TLM, what are the things that you are going to look up to? So this one, let's say for example, under TLM, I'm going to look at meaning of TLM. Is it okay? You want to explain the concept. So that is why you have taken TLM as an entity, and you are going to explain that entity so that whoever who take your research can better understand you. So the TLM, so meaning of TLM. So the first sub-entity is what I will discuss, the meaning of TLM. I will also talk about the various types of TLM. Then I also talk about importance of TLM. So you have to identify the various entities. Then within that entities, then you break the entity down into sub-entities. The sub-entities are the areas that you think you want to talk about. So it can be 4 areas, it can be 5 areas, depending on you. Then you come to entity 2, also student interest. The student interest also, so that is my entity 2. What will be the sub-entity? What are some of the things that I'm going to look at? I will look at the meaning of interest, the levels of student interest, the level of student interest in social studies. So you can see the level of student interest in social studies. Then we can also talk about ways to increase students' interest. So these are the sub-entities. These are the things that I'm going to explain under the student interest. Then I also identify social studies as an entity. So in social studies, what am I going to talk about? I will talk about meaning and purpose of social studies curriculum. I will also talk about the nature of social studies curriculum, the importance of social studies curriculum. So these are the entities. So after you are done with identifying the entity and breaking the entity into sub-entities, then we reorganize your conceptual framework. You know, each of the entity, which one should come first, which one should come second, and which one should come last. So you have to arrange it again. So I think social studies, I have to make social studies as well the first thing that I will talk about. Then the second thing will be TLM. Then the third thing will be social studies. So I have reorganized my conceptual framework. So this is how you take it. So the first thing is that you are going to talk about meaning and purpose of social studies curriculum. So you write meaning and purpose of social studies curriculum. So that is it. So when you write the meaning and purpose, then you talk about, you give a brief introduction about what you are going to write about. Then from there, then you try to identify what various scholars are saying in terms of meaning and purpose of social studies. So here you also talk about, you compare and contrast the opinions of various researchers. Maybe according to Ebu, social studies means this. According to Richard, 2022, social studies means that. According to Daniel, the purpose of social studies is about this. So you talk about that, then you discuss. Then from there, then you compare and contrast the various opinions of the researchers. So have you seen? Then when you compare also, then you also begin to talk about how is their opinions relevant in your study. You talk about how is it relevant in your study. Then from that, you draw some conclusion on that. Then you also add your own view about what they are saying. So this is how you go about it. So that is, then when you are done, then you come and take the second one, nature of the social studies curriculum. That is your sub-entity 2. Also then you talk about that one too. Then you talk about, so you do that for all the entities. So after you talk about this one, then you come to nature of social studies curriculum, you talk about that. Then from there, using the same approach, then you come to importance of social studies curriculum, you talk about that. Then from there, then you come to meaning of TLM. You also talk about that. Types of TLM, you talk about that. Importance of TLM. So using the same approach. Then from there, then you come to meaning. Then you come to student interest. Couldn't organize it where student interest. So let me organize it here. So here you talk about student interest. So student interest will also become the third entity. So you can see student interest. So the student interest. So that is how it is. So student interest, that is entity 2. You have to reorganize it yourself. So yes. So this one will become entity 3. So that is it. So you talk about meaning of interest, levels of student interest in social studies, way to increase students' interest. So you discuss all these concepts broadly, and these are the procedure that you go through in discussing all these things. We will do an example here. Then you come to, if you included a theory in your research, then you come to theoretical review. So theoretical reviews. For if you didn't include any theory, you need not to worry yourself to discuss the theoretical review. But if you included a theory in order to help you to understand your research, you do that. So with the theoretical review, we will talk about analysis. So here is the topic. You still bring your topic again, analysis of impact of TLM on social interest in social studies. So which one is the major entity or the major area that your theory is going to help us to explain? So here I've identified student interest. So this one, when you are doing that, you talk about the proponent of the theory, their major belief, their assumptions. So as for this one will come first, you talk about that, their major belief, various assumptions. Then also, you come to the major area that you are trying to talk about. So the major area you are trying to talk about, student interest. So these are the sub-entities or the sub-areas that I will talk about. I will talk about meaning of interest, levels of interest, how to increase what interest. And this one, you are going to use the theory to explain how does this theory explain the meaning of interest. How does the theory explain the levels of interest? How does the theory explain how to increase interest? So these are the areas that I'm going to use the theory to explain. So here, if you identify major areas, 2 major areas, you can also write it here, or 3 major areas, depending on the area that you have seen. So let's say, for example, the name of my theory is experiential theory. So here I will talk about the proponent of the experiential theory, who brought about it, discuss about it. Then from there, I will come and discuss about the main assumptions of the experiential theory. Then from there, then I will come to my sub-area, meaning of what? Interest. So I will talk about the experiential theory, their view on meaning of student interest. Then you come to their view of how to increase student interest. So you discuss all these in the light of what? Your theory, what the theory is saying about this. So you continue to discuss all these to what? The end. So that is how we do theoretical review. This is how we do that. Then when you are done with everything, then you come to the empirical review. So with the empirical review here, what we are trying to do is that you also indicate empirical review, then you come out with an introduction. Then you can come out with an introduction. Then from that introduction also, then here you come and paste your research question. So what I'm saying is that with the empirical review, it talks about your research questions. It talks about your research questions. So here you are going, if you have 3 research or 4 research questions, you are going to do empirical review based on your research question, because this empirical review is going to either support your research questions or either yes, not to support your research question. So with the empirical review, this is my research question 1. What is the perception of social studies teachers on the usage of TLM? So this is my research question 1. Then my main area, then instead of this one is framed in the form of question, but I will put it in the form of what? An objective like this. Instead of what is the perception, I will do perception of social studies teachers on usage of TLM. So this one will be my title. So the title won't be what is the perception, no. So I have to break it in the form of title. So my title will be the perception of social studies teachers on the usage of TLM. So you can see that with the main area, the title, when you look at the objectives, is normally found in the objective section. So the perception of social studies teachers on usage of TLM. So this one will become your title. So this one will be the title that you're going to use. Then when you start, you give a general introduction about what you are coming to do. Then you try to also move to the various abstracts, the various scholars' articles, to go and see the articles, the abstracts. The abstract is where you see everything about the research. So here you talk about the findings, you summarize the findings of what the various researchers or scholars are saying. Then you also try to criticize On each findings, you try to criticize their methodology, their conclusion. You have to identify gaps. What went where, what didn't go where, was their population, their target population, was it good? Was their instrument that they used in gathering data, was it appropriate? Was so any gap that you think you have identified, you try to criticize. Then from there, so you try to do for all various research. So you can do almost 20 abstracts on this one, on perception of social studies teachers. Then from this 20 abstracts, then you try to compare and contrast. So you try to compare and contrast. Then you also use relevant keywords to link them. You use relevant keywords to link them. That according to Simon did a comparative study and saw this and this and this and this and this. Similarly, Edu also saw the same thing by seeing this and this and this and this and this. Whilst the two findings are similar, in contrast, Naomi also found this. So have you seen the keywords that I'm using? I'm using these keywords to link the various study together. So I am narrating it in the form of story. It should be a story form. Kwame 2026 did a study on this and found out this and this and this and this and this and this and this. So on the same vein, Edu also did a similar study and also found this and this and this and this and this and this. Whilst Edu findings is in support with that of this, then Naomi did a research which was far different from them. To him, Naomi found this and this and this and this and this. Then you talk about it. Yes. So you talk about all these things. Then you try to use relevant keywords to link them. Then your observation. So with all these things that we are discussing, the question is, what about you? You also have to add your opinions to it. Then you come out with a conclusion. So you are going to do this for all your research questions. So have you seen my research question 2? Then I put it in the form of objectives like this. What is the impact of? So you have to reframe it so in such a way that it won't be in a question form. It will become as a topic that you are going to look at. So impact of TLM on the learning of social studies. So you follow the same procedure. You have to follow the same procedure to discuss all your research questions. If your research questions is 3, then from that you come to a conclusion. Then you summarize all that you have reviewed, including unique discoveries that you have seen. Then the last one is that you come to your reference. So this is how we go by literature review, and I hope this one helped. Now let's do a practical thing here. So the first thing that you have to do is you have to go to. Yes, let's go to this one. Is we have opened this one, so we have various that you can look at. So let me look at elicit. We have a new thing, elicit research. So this one is also part of the database, or the database where that you can get information from. So let me see. So this one, it will take time because my network is